Bedouin in the desert. Camel lopes at his heels. The date written on the back of the postcards 2 years ahead. All it says is, almost home, almost home. You'll put it over the fireplace, beside the Christmas cards. You'll take your gloves off your hands and go set the table. Turn the Eiffel Tower upside down, then right side up. Snow whirling all around. Through the glass sphere, Tel Aviv sinks into darkness. It's hot. The neighbors next door sit down to watch TV. Jerusalem. Our teacher is very excited. She points out all the places she knew before 48, and we look. A soldier in a heavy coat appears on the roof across from us and waves. Our teacher immediately leads us, shouting back to him, "The guardian of Israel shall not rest and shall not sleep." The pupils stand in the yard in pairs, wearing white shirts. They're singing, "Say not that this be my final journey." In the entrance, the principal stands silently, directing the long line entering. The driver stops the bus. A policeman steps in. Seeing him, 2 young men pull IDs from their pockets and hand them over. Rosa, 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 you are my beloved. Soldiers sing out loud in a truck climbing toward the village. They don't see the young man heading towards them. Behind his back, he clutches a folded notebook, whispers to himself, and stares straight ahead. The taxi brings him to Jaffa, from whence he continues on foot. On the way to the factory, he stops by a wall surrounding a hotel under construction. It's still early. No one's around. He writes on the wall in Arabic, "Ahmed and Palestine." Stops for a moment, then adds in English, "Rambo." The puddle of wine on the table is sopped up by the napkin. The painted bird on it turns red. He feeds leftovers to the dog at his feet. "Israel is home, I know. I'll come, but not now," she says. Silently, he watches the woman standing near the gas pump outside. In the evening, we stop at the base of a mountain. "We'll spend the night here," says the guide. "We'll see sunrise from the peak." By a pocket flashlight's beam, I take blankets from my army bag. On its side is a youth movement logo and my name. Beside these, my father's name written in German and Hebrew. Below, a black swastika, an ID number, and an unfamiliar name. He shuts the light and tries to sleep. He feels comfortable in the village. The children in the institution respond spontaneously to human warmth, despite their retardedness. They don't ask about his origins, and they're not curious about what his father did during the war. Next to the car, at the curb's edge, a man sleeps. His head rests on a pile of newspapers. Sensing my stare, he wakes up. "What day is today?" he asks. It was the longest day of the year. The silence on the other end is familiar. He knows that after a few seconds he'll hear the voice. "Filthy, stinking, get out of our neighborhood. You have no business being here. We'll take care of you." He puts the earpiece on the table, goes to the armchair, and sits quietly. He agrees to the price. She gets in the car and they leave. Her girlfriend waits, lighting a match. Behind her, "Rambo, King of Israel," is written on the wall. Someone comes out of the hotel approaching her. She keeps smoking. The sound of the soldiers singing fades. He leaves the path and enters an olive grove, places his notebook on the ground, and studies a snapshot from his brother, the doctor in Atlanta. The face of his American wife attracts him. She is smiling. The diners pause. On TV, the Prime Minister appears and raises his hands towards the cheering crowd. "Long live the Jewish people," his last words before the manager turns off the sound. Seeing the camera, the old security guard rises and puts his blue uniform on over his white t-shirt. Raising his shirt tail, he exposes underneath a large revolver and says, "Now I'm ready." From the moment the desert appears before us and the city disappears, she begins to talk. She talks about Amsterdam, about the time her lover killed himself, and about the first time, she said, she stood on the striptease stage to avenge herself on her dependency on men. Saturday afternoon, at the central bus station, not a soul, just one guy on a bench, holding a transistor to his ear. Shepherd in a white scarf, herding cattle across the road. Nearby, a large black rock, engraved with the words, "Our Uri went out and never came back." A truck loaded with workers slows down, its radio on. Someone tosses out a half-eaten apple. No bus arrives. After a few minutes, the old woman sitting next to me turns and touches my sleeve. "This isn't made in Israel, is it?" Pushing open the door, I walk in. Looking up from its dinner, the kibbutz stares. G gets up and meets me. We sit at an empty table. She's the only one of all her friends who's still single, so the kibbutz thinks it knows who I am. The assembly finished voting. The shack, the first structure on the kibbutz, the old dining room, will not be turned into a gallery for its memorabilia, but will be sold. For 2 days already, workers have been laboring to dismantle it for transporting to Gaza. It'll be rebuilt there and used as a classroom. The harvest celebration still growing strong. Leaving alone, he steps on the wet grass. A pair of heavy boots stands at the entrance to his terrace. Beside them, an artillery shell holding a cotton plant. He He turns on the light and discovers her in his bed, wearing only a t-shirt from Copenhagen. On the floor, a bowl of grapes. She smiles and throws the pillow at him. Lights out. She gazes at the mirror. The radio plays her old famous song. Applying fresh moisturizer around her eyes, she hears the melody fade. The announcer dedicates the song to the beloved grandma from Kiryat Ata. Visiting hours end. The relatives are cleared out. Paper cups and shreds of discarded newspaper cover the floor. At the end of the corridor, a young woman still sitting, trying to comfort a sobbing child. The gray iron mesh is covered with wet lipstick marks. Between the taut guide ropes, a line of spectators slowly advances. They pass two farmers feeding a cow its fodder. Her right flank's fitted with a small glass window, through which the wonders of her digestive system are revealed. At the sound of the loudspeaker, people continue on. Of all the achievements on exhibit at the first decade exposition, this is the pinnacle. A copper tray, laden with freshly washed figs, and cups of cold water. The old man's grandson walks out of the tin shed, a hoe in each hand. The old man stands them on the ground. This hoe is from the English time, and this one is from the Jewish. Both hoes are worn down, one halfway through. We march down the bare hill, carrying the banners in our arms. A woman's on her way up, pushing before her two babies in a stroller. She stops, fastens her white head covering, and smiles. So it goes. You come, you go, and we stay. From the moment the good guys cut down the bad guys, it becomes impossible to watch the movie. The kids in the back cannot stop arguing. Is it an Uzi machine gun or not? The cashier's office door opens from time to time. David's tower appears in a large photograph behind him. The line hardly moves. Inside the complaint and suggestion box, I find an old bus ticket. In the Victory Cafe, the owner stands on a chair and adds a photograph of the new Prime Minister to the long row, which includes the state seer, the presidents, past Prime Ministers, chiefs of staff, the kings of Morocco, and the local soccer team. The children are staring at me, at the color of my skin and eyes. What country are you from, they want to know. I'm an Eskimo. They continue staring for a moment, then burst out laughing. When the bus halts, the passengers rise, bow their heads, and stand silently in the aisle. The sirens are heard clearly now. Everyone stares at the back of a young man wearing a red knapsack, who remains seated. A moment later, he folds his map and slowly looks up. Wearing helmet and protective goggles, the police sapper begins advancing towards the suspicious briefcase. On all the balconies, people gather and stare as they used to when the army parade marched along the street. A woman in one of the buildings continues beating her rug until the explosion. moment the whole business starts, you cannot hear a thing. You only see a rain of fire and the thorn seeds flying gently in the bomb bursts. After it's all over, we return there with his father to search the empty field for any sign. Perhaps something was left there. Hours of searching, and all we found was half a dog tag. The car stops. A woman in a blue maternity dress, hanging wash, pauses and stares my way. I keep trying to start the engine. On the wall, someone has written in huge letters, "Herzl, the son of a bitch." Around the tree, girls are dancing and jumping, singing "Exalted Art Thou."